Okay, in this video I want to go over viewports one more time, and I want to discuss their scale or zoom factor. And I will go back to model, and I'm going to draw a line. Let me get into object, layer. I'm going to draw a line, and I am going to say it is 1 long. Okay, pretty short, pretty actually I don't know what that is. We're of course using the decimal units. Oh, I apologize. Let me get back into decimal where I belong. I'll get back into the 4. So I have something that is 1 long, 1 whatever. But let's go ahead and go to a layout, and I'll go to my viewports layer, and I will VPO viewports, and tell you what, I'm gonna do 2, and this is really irrelevant. You can do it however you want, as long as you have a couple of viewports here. And like I've mentioned before, if I'm in here, I can lock this. I'm not going to, because what I'm wanting to do with this video has to do with this number right here. It says scale of the selected viewport. Now, what it is not talking about is the overall size of this out here. What we're talking about is the scale of the inside, scale of the window, viewing area. Really what I wish they would call it is more of a zoom factor. Scale, like here, is to change the size of something, to scale something, change the size of something while maintaining its proportions. I'm not going to change the size of anything. What I am going to do is change the relative zoom as far as zooming in and out. Now I'll come over here and I'll kind of get in the same thing, and I see that now it says 1.4, zoom out, it goes smaller. Still not real sure what's going on here, but if I'm in this window here, and if I pop this up, the drop down, the pop up, I see I have several of them here. Now you currently do not have this one-to-one metric. That's something I've created from a long time ago in other activities with my other class. But you do have scale to fit. You have 1 to 1, 1 to 2, down to 1 to 100, 2 to 1, 100 to 1, and then you can get into the fractional. These fractional equals 1 foot 0 inches. You may or may not suspect this is what's commonly used for architectural type drawings. Floor plans for residential, 1/4 inch equals 1 foot. Very standard for residential floor plans. Commercial floor plans, 1/8 of an inch equals a foot. So again, a lot of different things, different sizes there. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and click on 1 to 1. Hopefully you understand 1 to 1 means full size. 1 to 1, that ratio, the colon is 2, that meaning the word TO, 2. And what it means is so many units on my drawing are basically equal to so many units on the actual object. So in this case, if I get out here, I'm going to say, and I'm just typing this up so you see it, drawing, and I'm going to leave it as 2, actual. That's what the scale factor means. Okay? Anytime you see a scale of something, X amount of units on the drawing, it doesn't matter what unit, whether you want to measure in inches, centimeters, feet, whatever it may be, X amount of units on the drawing is equal to X amount of units on the actual, or in this case, 1 unit in the drawing is equal to 1 unit in the actual. If it were 1 to 2, 1 unit on the drawing is actually 2 units on, or 2 units on the actual object. This is also can be viewed as a fraction. 1:2 is basically the same thing as 1/2, half, which is less than 1. So therefore you should know that anything like that, where this first number, sometimes the numerator, is smaller than what would be the second number, the denominator, you know it is going to be smaller than actual size. On the contrary, if the first number is larger than the second number, then drawing units is going to be larger in the drawing than in the actual size. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and select, again, I already selected 1:1. This is full size. Here, I don't want this to be full size. I want it to be half size. Okay, so you can see pretty obvious that it is smaller, and this is a 1:2. So one thing I'm going to go ahead and tell you, if you were to print this off and measure this, you'd find out that measures right at 1 inch. Even though I'm in decimal units, I've never said that it's inches, I just said decimal units, it will default down to inches. So it's just good information to know that 1 unit in decimal is actually 1 inch. Some of the drawings you've been doing were in millimeters or in metric. And so it would be nice to be able to change units or somehow or another to convert it. So if I want to print those full size, they will print full size but in metric. I'm going to open up another drawing. This happens to be those MD4 1 through 17 drawings. It's pretty easy to see which the larger ones, those were the ones drawn in metric, where these real small ones were drawn in imperial or decimal inch or customary, US customary. And even though that's what I have, I want to be able to print each one of these out on a sheet of paper. I'm just going to say an 8.5 by 11. Let's see what I have here. Okay, there's an 8.5 by 11. I'll go ahead and pull this out just in case. And I'm going to right click and I will copy, say move to the end, create a copy, hit OK. And I'll leave it at that for now. Now, in here, as I go to, let's say, this object here, if I want to say make that full size, and I see right now that this is basically a little over, halfway over 1/100th the size. You can interpret that. 1 to 100. Okay, there is 1 to 100. Obviously, 1:1, way too large, way too large. Well, if you check your drawing sheets that I gave you, you're going to find out that that is metric. And so therefore, this is in millimeters, however many it is. And if I measure from here to here, that was 200 millimeters wide. I'd like to print that out full size. I want it to be able to print and then measure it as 200 millimeters wide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create, there's nothing in here to change the units. So I'm going to do it right here. Now I already have mine done. I'm going to show you how this is done. By the way, right there, this is what you're going to end up getting, 1:1 metric. That is full size. So how did I do that? It's not on here already. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you have custom, XREF scales, percentages. Go ahead and click on custom. There's your ... And you get this. And I've got all of these same ones that I've already seen. And it says right here, 1 paper unit equals 1 drawing unit. Don't let this confuse you. This is saying exactly the same thing I did just a minute ago. It's just that they're using different terminology. Paper units being on the layout sheet size or the layout tabs per the actual object. As far as AutoCAD's concerned, the actual object exists in the model space, and that's what they're referring to as the drawing unit. So don't let that confuse you. Over here I have add, edit, move down, move up, delete, reset, so on. Let's go ahead and do add. Now here is just the name. This is the name that you're going to see here in the list. And I'll just say metric 1:1, 1:1, full size. So again here, paper units, drawing units. The way I still prefer myself, what works best for me, this to me is a drawing itself. And this here is the actual model, the building, whatever it may be, the part. So in this case, paper units, if I say 1 and is equal to, or this is a ratio, so 2, 1 is equal to what? Well, if you recall, right, very beginning of the course, I commented about their 25.4 millimeters in 1 inch. So if I type 25.4, now this may not work out, might be the opposite of what I need. I'll just come back and reverse the two. But in this case, since I said 1 normally is an inch, I'm going to say 1 unit here is actually 25.4 units on the object, or in the actual object. So I'll go ahead and hit OK. So again, when we're creating here is metric 1.1, or sorry, metric 1-to-1, and I'm going to hit OK. So as I zoom in and out, and I'm going to go up and select metric 1-to-1. Best way to do this to test it is to simply print it off. Now be careful, once you move, it's going to adjust here, and it might be hard getting back. So it's fine, just simply say metric 1-to-1, put it exactly where you want it, make sure it's still there, lock it on your status bar, and now it's stuck there. And best way to test this is print it off. So in this case, here I have my 1-to-1 metric, which is the same thing. Now I should be able to if I so in this case, I'm going to say that one is 1-to-1, and this one is my 1-to-1 metric. And I should be able to see, if I ended up creating a little over 25 of these, I should see that it will end up being this inch. So I can now print this off on a printer, full size. Make sure, now be careful, that's another thing, that in your plot dialog box, you do have a print scale right here, or a plot scale. Right here by default, normally it's 1-to-1. If you don't, and you have fit to paper for something else, it's going to adjust it however necessary, or in this case you could have many other fit to paper, or I could use all of these different styles or different types of scales. So be very careful doing that. But printing this off, I would then be able to measure, this should be right at 1 inch, and this should be right at 1 millimeter. And so again, that's how we go about creating a full-size metric scale. And if it's super large and you need to make it half the size, then you would do 1 to, and then you'd have to double up the 25.4, having 50.8, or 4 times for 1 to 4 scale, 1 to 10 scale, whichever scale you need. The best way, the easiest way, is to go right here and create your own. Scroll all the way down, custom, add, and then you create whatever you need. Okay, again, 1 to 25.4, which ultimately is 0.039374, and it goes on forever. That's how you would create that. And again, any factor or multiples thereof of that conversion, 25.4 millimeters is equal to an inch. And at this time, I'm going to cancel or complete this video.